Gaga has always been more than just a stage name. It's a symbol that electrifies crowds, sparks global debates, and leaves anyone watching with a burning question. Who is the real woman behind the costumes, the controversies, and the unforgettable performances? That curiosity has grown even more intense ever since she revealed the hidden darkness lurking behind her fame. It wasn't simply a bad day or a rough patch. She admitted to grappling with psychosis, a mental health condition that can twist a person's reality until it feels like there's no stable ground underfoot. The moment she spoke those words, headlines exploded with theories, and her most ardent fans were left reeling in a state of shock. But beneath every sensational headline lies a deeper story. Hers spans the tender beginnings of a young, ambitious musician named Stefani Germanotta, the meteoric rise of a boundary-breaking pop star, and the very public yet profoundly personal battles that threatened to overwhelm even her ironclad persona. Growing up in New York, Stephanie was never short on determination. As a child, she was drawn to the piano, obsessing over melodies until they became a second language. That obsession gradually transformed into a hunger to perform. Her parents supported her artistic pursuits, but society was quick to remind her that her flair for the dramatic was too much. Instead of shrinking from that critique, she leaned into it, determined to forge a path no one had walked before. The clubs of Lower Manhattan became her testing ground. In those gritty spaces, she learned the art of shocking crowds into absolute silence. Whether with provocative outfits or piercing, emotionally charged vocals, she was on a mission to be seen and heard. Her earliest years were marked by multiple transformations. Some music executives tried forcing her into a cookie-cutter pop mold, hoping to refine her raw talent into a formula they could control. But conformity was never in her DNA, and she walked away from more than one potentially lucrative deal because it suffocated her creativity. At the time, many industry insiders called her naive for abandoning these chances at stardom. Yet she refused to compromise. That unshakable determination laid the groundwork for the artist we know now as Lady Gaga, a stage presence so vividly unique that the music world had to take notice. Not long after she coined the name Lady Gaga, supposedly inspired by the Queen track Radio Gaga, her unstoppable energy collided with mainstream radio. Just Dance, originally seen by some critics as a novelty, skyrocketed through the charts, introducing a new brand of pop that was equal parts danceable anthem and avant-garde experiment. People found themselves entranced, not merely by the beat, but by her unabashed display of individuality. The flurry of subsequent hits, Poker Face, Love Game, and Paparazzi only cemented her place in pop culture. Whenever she appeared on television or at award shows, fans and reporters braced themselves for some dramatic and unpredictable entrance. The deeper question, though, was how much of this spectacle was an authentic reflection of her soul, and how much was a protective mask. Little did the public suspect that behind the glossy magazine covers and unstoppable stage presence, Lady Gaga was fighting a silent war inside her own head. Yet her creative choices continually pushed boundaries, guaranteeing headlines. From the bright hair colors to outrageous ensembles, like the infamous meat dress that sparked both horror and fascination, she reveled in the chatter. Some praised her for turning each appearance into a conversation-starting piece of performance art. Others labeled her a shameless attention seeker who craved controversy for its own sake. Regardless, whenever she performed, fans ate it up, reveling in a kind of carnival that only she could create. That success brought new pressures, sold-out tours, countless interviews, and an endless cycle of media scrutiny. Instead of just being a musician, she found herself filling the role of a living symbol for outsiders, misfits, and anyone who felt alienated. Her tight-knit community of fans, lovingly called Little Monsters, served as a lifeline of sorts. She'd speak about inclusion and self-empowerment at concerts, urging the crowd to stay true to their identities in a world that often demands conformity. The sense of belonging she fostered was no accident. It was a reflection of her own experiences, battling insecurity, persistent anxiety, and a creeping sense that the demands of fame might eventually swallow her. Even in the midst of adoration, she sensed her vulnerabilities growing. But at that stage, most of the public saw only her defiance and unwavering confidence. As her catalog expanded and the fashion statements grew ever more flamboyant, so did the rumors and gossip. Some whispered that she was faking her eccentricities, using them purely as a marketing ploy. Others speculated that behind her flamboyance was a deeply wounded soul. Then there were conspiracy theories, like claims that she was part of clandestine societies, or that she'd stolen entire identities from other performers who'd met tragic ends. The wilder these stories became, the more her legend grew, turning Lady Gaga into an almost mythic figure in the entertainment world. That mythos was accompanied by the occasional feud. The supposed rivalry with Madonna became fodder for tabloids worldwide, especially after numerous comparisons between their edgy styles. Media outlets dissected every public statement the two stars made, interpreting even the slightest compliment or critique as a veiled insult. Some fans sided with Madonna, insisting Gaga's entire persona was a rehash of well-trodden territory. Others saw Lady Gaga as the rightful heir to the pop throne, a new breed who updated and evolved the blueprint laid down by her predecessors. Gaga herself often brushed off the speculation, once saying she had deep respect for Madonna's legacy. But the public craved drama, and so the rumor mill churned on. Behind all the flamboyance and media-driven feuds, life wasn't easy. Lady Gaga had begun speaking in hushed terms about certain challenges, once vaguely referring to them as invisible struggles. At the time, many dismissed this as her way of drumming up attention. Yet, in reality, her mental state was deteriorating. She experienced bouts of paranoia so intense that she struggled to separate real threats from imagined ones. Sometimes she doubted her own sense of self, unsure whether her impulses were genuine or shaped by the demands of an industry that thrives on constant reinvention. Little by little, she slipped into a world where the lines between reality and delusion blurred, a slow descent she feared would ruin everything she'd worked so hard to build. As her fame soared, so did her philanthropic efforts. She co-founded the Born This Way Foundation with her mother, focusing on youth empowerment, mental health awareness, and creating a kinder world. Publicly, she championed self-love and reminded fans of their inherent worth, emphasizing that everyone deserves acceptance. Privately, however, she wrestled with her own acceptance. It was during this period that controversies around her authenticity gained traction. Critics claimed she was merely exploiting social issues for good PR. In truth, she was likely fighting to align her philanthropic identity with her personal need for clarity and stability. By shining a spotlight on mental health, she was also making small steps toward expressing her own pain without fully revealing it. Around the same time, she ventured into acting. Her role in American Horror Story prompted a Golden Globe win, and eventually she took on the lead in A Star Is Born, a performance that stunned critics and earned her accolades. For a moment, it seemed everything was falling into place. Her music soared, her acting gained respect, and she carried herself with a poised, measured confidence. Yet that external success masked the real storm raging within. Only those in her closest inner circle witnessed the cracks forming behind the scenes. For years, Lady Gaga maintained silence about the seriousness of her mental health struggles. In interviews, she'd drop hints about depression or mention dealing with trauma, but her words were carefully chosen to avoid total exposure. Rumors about an OD or self-destructive habits kept swirling. Some suspected she was on the brink of losing her grip, yet there was never enough proof to confirm the speculations. Industry insiders muttered about canceled appearances or abrupt emotional breakdowns backstage, but the public was mostly left guessing. Then, in one unexpected interview, she bared it all, acknowledging she had been diagnosed with psychosis, a condition so stigmatized that many people fear talking about it, let alone confessing it to the entire planet. When Lady Gaga revealed she'd been living with psychosis for roughly 5 years, the wave of media coverage was immediate. Headlines competed to spin the revelation in the most sensational way possible. Social media lit up with fans expressing shock and support, while skeptics wondered if it was another strategy designed to draw attention. Yet anyone who watched her speak about it saw real vulnerability, genuine pain in her eyes. This wasn't merely a fleeting mention, it was a raw, confessional moment from an artist known for extremes. According to her, she would sometimes wake up trapped in horrifying illusions, uncertain which sounds or images were fabricated by her mind. That sensation of being unable to ground herself in reality left her terrified of how the public might react if they truly knew. To her surprise, many responded with messages of empathy and gratitude for her honesty. Still, the confession triggered a fresh wave of wild speculation. Some naysayers questioned whether this was a ploy to regain media buzz, especially during an album release cycle. Others fixated on the question of how she'd managed to keep performing and producing music while enduring such mental strain. But for Lady Gaga, addressing that question publicly was part of the healing process. She spoke of leaning on professionals, engaging in rigorous therapy, and finding solace in her support system, including her then-new partner Michael Polanski, who was crucial in helping her believe she could navigate life without shame. The stigma of psychosis still lingered. There's no sugarcoating the harsh judgments that come with it, but by admitting to it, she shattered an unspoken barrier around celebrity vulnerability. Michael Polanski wasn't her first public relationship. Before him, she dated celebrities, had a broken engagement, and faced tabloid rumors about controlling partners or unfaithful behavior. In almost every instance, her romantic life was scrutinized for weaknesses. Was she too busy for real commitment? Were her partners intimidated by her constant creative drive? Did her mental health place too much pressure on these relationships? The gossip rarely let up, but in Polanski, she seemed to find someone who accepted both Lady Gaga the icon and Stefani the person still healing from psychological scars. According to insiders, he saw past the spectacle and offered her a sense of peace. Early on, he gently observed that she wasn't as happy as she could be, an honest comment that stung but ultimately pushed her to confront her lingering issues rather than bury them. That willingness to face her inner turmoil led to a turning point in how she communicated with the world. Music videos took on more personal symbolism, interviews came with an added layer of sincerity, and live performances became spaces where she occasionally addressed mental health head-on, encouraging the crowd to acknowledge their own struggles. This was a far cry from her earlier days, when spectacle and mystique were paramount. Now, transparency and vulnerability claimed center stage. The effect was staggering. Many fans who once idolized her for her flamboyance began relating to her on a deeper level, seeing in her struggles a reflection of their own fears and insecurities. And so, her transformation from pop provocateur to advocate for mental health continued unabated. That transformation, however, didn't mean she stopped courting controversy altogether. Lady Gaga remained a master at fueling curiosity, whether through bold musical collaborations, boundary-pushing red carpet outfits, or cryptic social media posts hinting at hidden messages. Now, though, controversy was balanced by an undercurrent of empathy. She performed at high-profile events like the Super Bowl, delivered stunning vocals at the Oscars, and spoke at mental health conferences in the same calendar year. A convergence of activism and showmanship that few artists could pull off without seeming contrived. Regardless of one's opinion on her, it was difficult to deny that her voice resonated well beyond the realm of pop music. As rumors about her condition circulated, some tabloids latched onto sensational angles. A few claimed she was spiraling out of control, describing episodes where she allegedly collapsed in tears backstage. Others insisted she'd had to cancel shows due to severe mental breakdowns. While there's no doubt she faced real battles, no one beyond her immediate circle knew the precise truth. The gap between rumor and reality left fans uncertain, but also strangely fascinated. Each time she took the stage, they wondered if she was about to unleash a meltdown or triumph like never before. The unpredictability only fed the mystique surrounding her name. Amid the chaos, Lady Gaga's philanthropic drive accelerated. Through the Born This Way Foundation, she made strides to turn her experiences into positive change. Resources were shared for people dealing with depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. She funded campaigns promoting inclusion in schools, championed online kindness, and repeatedly emphasized how kindness isn't a weakness, but a transformative power. While skeptics saw it as convenient PR, many participants credited the foundation with drastically improving their emotional well-being. Gaga's personal journey infused these initiatives with authenticity. Each public appearance was a chance to remind audiences that behind the glamour, she too faced real trauma and overcame it through professional help and community support. Yet, for all the positivity, she was still Lady Gaga. The world came to expect the unexpected from her, whether it was a new album that jumped genres or a statement outfit at a major awards show. Her artistry didn't slow down. She continuously recorded music that oscillated between raw ballads, laying bare her deepest fears, and high-tempo pop tracks that showcased the fearless performer fans adored. Occasionally, critics accused her of capitalizing on tragedy, claiming the confessional lyrics about her psychosis were a marketing tool. She dismissed those claims, arguing that creative expression had always been her lifeline, her way of channeling real emotions into art. That creative fervor also played out in collaborations with other artists. Working alongside legends like Tony Bennett, she explored a jazzier side, confounding those who only saw her as a pop star reliant on synthesizers and shock value. These collaborations cemented her reputation as a versatile vocalist who could slip into multiple genres without losing her identity. The synergy between her forward-thinking flair and Bennett's classic style highlighted how her true power lay in adaptability. She could reinvent herself, shedding one persona to unveil another, all the while retaining her distinctive spirit. One of the most persistent conspiracies circulating the internet has to do with a lesser-known musician from Lady Gaga's earlier days. Whispers claim she stole not just songs, but entire performance concepts from an aspiring artist who tragically offed herself. While official evidence never truly surfaced to validate this rumor, the story persisted in the darkest corners of fan forums. For some, it fed the narrative that Lady Gaga's rise to fame was paved with unethical choices and hidden tragedies. For others, it was simply another piece of tabloid sensationalism overshadowing her real struggles. Lady Gaga rarely addressed these allegations directly, preferring to let her body of work and philanthropic actions speak for themselves. In the midst of these swirling theories, the confession about Psychosis cast everything in a new light. The notion that she struggled with episodes so severe they robbed her of a stable sense of reality suggested a vulnerability at odds with the unstoppable force fans had always seen. She described it as feeling haunted by a ghost of herself, an echo that both terrified and shamed her. It took time for her to understand she couldn't just will the condition away. Therapy, medication, and patience were essential components of her gradual return to healthier ground. She credited her loved ones, her health professionals, and her fans' unwavering love for reminding her why she had to keep going, even when her mind distorted her fears into monstrous shapes. Through that vulnerable admission, she helped demystify psychosis for many people who had only encountered it as a sensational plot point in movies or a casual joke. Suddenly, mental health professionals and advocacy groups praised her for using her massive platform to shine a light on a complicated and often misunderstood condition. In interviews, Gaga alluded to how the condition felt like a permanent shadow in her life, always waiting to re-emerge if she pushed herself too hard or neglected her self-care routines. Balancing her non-stop career with her mental well-being became a tightrope act. Some days she soared. On others, she clung to the precarious line, anxious that one misstep might plunge her back into that nightmarish state. Yet Lady Gaga was never one to remain passive. As her story resonated, she found that authenticity could be just as compelling as any costume made of raw meat. Instead of relying purely on shock factor, she began weaving deeper emotional arcs into her narrative. Though she hadn't abandoned her love for dramatic flair, her interviews and social media posts contained more genuine reflection, encouraging people to destigmatize mental health care and seek help if they felt overwhelmed. The topics of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and psychosis were no longer taboo in her sphere. She spoke about them openly, inviting others to do the same. She once acknowledged that the hardest part of speaking out was the fear of being labeled crazy. That single word could ruin a celebrity's reputation in an image-driven industry. However, she concluded that enduring the hush-hush culture around mental health was far more damaging. Her revelations didn't instantly solve all her problems, but they granted her an important sense of freedom. By speaking about it, she took control over the narrative, no longer allowing rumor mills to define her condition. She also eased the burden for fans who faced similar issues, some of whom had been too afraid to share their stories. Now, if a pop icon could admit to psychosis on one of the biggest stages in the world, perhaps others could find the courage to step forward as well. In the shadow of her confession, her relationship with Michael Polanski grew stronger. When she recounted their conversations, she spoke about how he challenged her to believe she deserved happiness, a concept she often questioned due to her self-described guilt and lingering shame. His unwavering calm provided a counterbalance to her high-energy life, and she frequently mentioned how important it was to have someone by her side who never treated her mental health struggles as flaws. He recognized them as wounds that needed consistent care, just like any other serious health condition. As time passed, Lady Gaga's perspective on creativity evolved too. She started focusing on the healing aspects of music rather than the raw ambition to dominate charts. That shift became evident in her newer songs, which melded euphoric dance beats with personal lyrics about self-discovery and resilience. While still embracing spectacle in her visuals, she no longer clung to shock tactics as a necessity. Instead, she began to value genuine connection and meaningful storytelling, weaving personal anecdotes into her songwriting. Critics noticed a different spark. She was still the same unstoppable performer, but her flamboyance now had a heartfelt purpose. Naturally, controversies continued to find her. From abrupt cancellations of major performances to heated rumors about her stance on various social issues, Lady Gaga remained under the microscope. Her every move was scrutinized. Did her mental health factor into a particular creative decision? Was a theatrical stunt truly a statement of her artistic freedom or a coded cry for help? The endless speculation could be exhausting. She acknowledged she sometimes wanted to retreat from the spotlight entirely, but her passion for music, activism, and the bond she shared with her fans kept her present. She also experimented with fresh projects, including a beauty line that further blurred the lines between artistry and personal expression. Each product launch was accompanied by a message of self-acceptance, turning makeup into a symbol of creativity rather than a mask. Once again, some critics sneered that it was a savvy marketing move, but many consumers found solace in the brand's inclusive message, feeling it echoed Lady Gaga's broader approach to embracing authenticity, no matter how unconventional. In public appearances for the brand, she often circled back to her experiences with self-image, driving home the point that beauty should never conceal a person's worth or their traumas. Reflecting on her journey, it becomes clear that Lady Gaga's greatest talent might be her fearlessness in sharing fractured parts of herself. She spent years enchanting the world with elaborate costumes and kaleidoscopic visuals. But when she finally removed those barriers, people found a raw, all-too-human story beneath the glitter. The revelation about Psychosis not only expanded public understanding of her as a person, but also underscored the reality that success and suffering aren't mutually exclusive. Even as she sang about championing individuality, she grappled with a mind that occasionally turned against her. That duality is a crucial piece of why Lady Gaga remains endlessly captivating. She can stun audiences with a polished performance in front of millions, then moments later express trembling vulnerability in a private interview. Both extremes are part of who she is. Her boldness in confronting illusions or paranoia doesn't negate the flamboyance that first grabbed the world's attention. In truth, it adds new depth to the conversation about how far an artist can push creative boundaries while still fighting their inner demons. Every time she closes a chapter of her career, say wrapping up a tour or releasing a final single from an album, fans wonder what radical transformation is coming next. Will she embark on a purely acoustic era or pivot to experimental electronic music? Will she reveal more chilling details about the nights when her mind tormented her? Or perhaps she'll redirect her energy toward mental health advocacy in a more official capacity, using her platform to champion policy changes. The speculation never ends, and that's precisely what keeps people watching. Lady Gaga's story doesn't have a neat ending. She continues to evolve in real time, surprising those who think they have her figured out. No single moment can encapsulate the complexity of a woman who is simultaneously a global superstar, a relentless advocate, a creative chameleon, and someone who struggled with losing touch with reality. Her journey reminds us that triumph and turmoil often walk hand in hand. It also poses a powerful question about the nature of celebrity worship. How many icons are silently contending with hidden terrors while the world projects its fantasies onto them? That question lingers as the ultimate cliffhanger. We can analyze her discography, dissect her public statements, or debate her controversial performances, but we may never truly grasp what it feels like to live inside Lady Gaga's mind. Still, her openness about Psychosis provided a glimpse behind the curtain. She showed how a worldwide phenomenon can also be a person navigating fear, shame, and ultimately hope. In doing so, she invited everyone to step beyond the spectacle and witness a narrative that's both astonishing and deeply human. Perhaps that's what cements her legacy more than any chart-topping single or viral fashion statement, the willingness to say, "Yes, I've been shattered, but here I am, and I'm not hiding anymore." It's that naked honesty that resonates in her music and in every candid moment she chooses to share with the world. Whether she's belting out an uplifting anthem on a stadium stage or quietly discussing mental health with a talk show host, the core message remains the same. You are not alone in your struggles, and there is strength in unveiling the unspoken. And so the story of Lady Gaga continues, an ever-evolving saga of highs, lows, and revelations that refuse to fit any tidy narrative. She may surprise us with another bold revelation next year, or keep certain secrets forever locked away. All we know is that she'll keep creating, keep pushing artistic boundaries, and keep inviting the world to confront subjects most people would rather ignore. Perhaps one day, she'll share even deeper layers of the psychosis that once gripped her, or she might focus on healing in private, letting her fans interpret the cryptic messages that occasionally slip into her music. Either way, the enigma endures, and that's precisely what makes her one of this generation's most fascinating figures. Whenever the final curtain eventually falls on her career, which could be decades from now, the lasting impression won't be just about the outlandish outfits or the record-breaking hits. Instead, it will likely center on a courageous star who chose to rip off the mask of invincibility and show her vulnerabilities to a world hungry for spectacle. Lady Gaga's willingness to be messy, complicated, and real may very well be the greatest performance of all, outshining the largest stadiums and the flashiest award shows. Because in an industry where public images are often a polished facade, she dared to break character and admit she wasn't always okay. And if someone as seemingly unstoppable as Lady Gaga can own her truths and keep marching forward, whether in 10-inch heels or barefoot in the privacy of her living room, then what's stopping the rest of us from embracing our own storms and forging ahead, no matter how impossible it all seems? Yes, Lady Gaga's narrative is part rags to riches, part performance art spectacle, and part raw testimony of mental health struggles. Ultimately, it's a testament to the idea that authentic expression holds more power than any meticulously crafted facade. She's living proof that the journey from darkness to light isn't linear or simple. It's winding, full of setbacks and triumphs, revelations and mysteries. And for those watching from the outside, uncertain of what lies behind the next wardrobe choice or album release, one truth remains: her story continues to unfold, forever reminding us that there's more to every icon than meets the eye.